Welcome to the first presentation in a series titled, You've Been Elected to the Board, Now What? These presentations have been created to assist you with navigating your role on the chapter board. This first presentation is general information about the roles of the board, and subsequent presentations will discuss in detail the individual roles. During this 20-minute presentation, we're going to focus on board roles, 3 duties of the board, facilitative leadership, bylaws, standing rules, policies and procedures, small board meeting procedures, what happens during a board meeting, Sarbanes-Oxley policies, budget approval, and member engagement. The chapter board consists of the officers and the directors. The officers consist of at least 5 or more: the president, the vice president, the recording secretary, the treasurer, and the immediate past president. Some boards opt to also include a corresponding secretary and a president-elect. Per the NAWIC bylaws, there must be a minimum of 2 directors. Each chapter has the option to increase that number depending on how many members they have. Some choose to have 1 director for each 10 members, and these are stipulated in the chapter's standing rules. Only active and corporate members qualifying as voting members are able to serve on the board. The board meets on a regular basis to conduct the business of the association, which is directed by the bylaws. NAWIC's policies state that there should be at least 6 board meetings each year, and this is found in Section C of the Operations Manual. The president presides at all meetings and serves as chair of the board of directors. She calls regular monthly meetings of the board of directors and any special meetings of the board that may be necessary. She's authorized to create special committees and appoints members to all standing and special committees, with the exception of the nominating committee, and she designates the chair for each. She is one of 3 officers authorized to countersign all checks. She cannot be a member of the nominating committee, and she shall in a timely manner prepare and file all documents necessary to protect the chapter's nonprofit status for the fiscal year in which she serves as president. The vice president performs the duties of the president in her absence and succeeds to the office of president if that office becomes vacant. The president can appoint the vice president to be the liaison between the chapter committees. This is similar to the national board, where the vice president is the national committee's liaison to the board. The recording secretary is responsible for the permanent records of the chapter, including minutes of all regular and special meetings of the chapter and the board of directors. She should keep a current roster of chapter membership and perform such other duties as may be requested by the president or the board of directors. The corresponding secretary, if any, shall be responsible for all correspondence of the chapter. If not, this falls to the recording secretary. The treasurer is custodian of all funds. She's one of 3 officers authorized to countersign all checks. She pays the bills authorized by the board of directors, keeps an itemized account of receipts and disbursements, presents a written report at chapter meetings and the board of directors meetings, and delivers audited records to her successor within 30 days following the expiration of her term. She is a member of the finance committee. The president-elect, if you have one, attends all meetings of the chapter board of directors, acquaints herself with the duty of the president, and performs such other duties as may be assigned to her by the president or the board of directors. She also shall not be a member of the nominating committee. The immediate past president shall serve for 1 year immediately following her term as president of the chapter and serves an advisor or mentor to the president. This would be a perfect position to have as the chair of your mentoring committee. The president, vice president, and president-elect must have served on the board prior to being elected for their roles. It doesn't even matter how long ago they served, they just must have served on that board. Like the region directors on the national board, the directors on the chapter board are a voice for the general members. It's important that your general members are heard on any items brought before the board. They also communicate to the general members what the board is doing. They exercise general supervision and control over the business. They, as a board, designate a depository for all chapter funds and designate the 3rd officer authorized to countersign checks for withdrawal of funds from the depositories. They authorize payment of any indebtedness incurred on approved budget items, and they adopt the annual budget of the chapter. As a whole, the chapter board fills by ballot any vacancies occurring on the board of directors with the exception of the president and president-elect. A vacancy in the office of immediate past president is not filled. They're authorized to create special committees, present recommendations for action at regular chapter meetings, and transact any other business of the chapter not otherwise provided for. The members of the Board of Directors should be familiar with the NAWIC Operations Manual and the respective position handbooks. Trainings such as this are just the beginning of a board's understanding of their role. The board should make decisions in the best interests of NAWIC and its members and should not be doing anything for the express benefit of one individual or one committee. The board members should attend all board meetings and chapter meetings. We all have personal commitments that keep us from attending chapter meetings, but the board meetings are necessary to accomplish the goals of the chapter. NAWIC's position on any subject should be stated correctly. The chapter board of directors should not release any statements without the approval of the national board. When what is said in the boardroom stays in the boardroom. Even if you don't agree with the decision, the board should leave the room united. And as always, the board should exercise their best judgment and not do anything to jeopardize their charter status or status as a nonprofit. There are 3 duties that every board must adhere to, the first being the duty of care. This describes the level of competence that is expected of a board member, and it's commonly expressed as the duty of care that an ordinary prudent person would exercise in a like position and under similar circumstances. This means that the board members owe the association the duty to exercise reasonable care when she makes a decision as a steward of that association. The second is a duty of loyalty, a standard of faithfulness. A board must give undivided allegiance when making decisions affecting this association. This means that a board member can never use information for personal gain, but must act in the best interests of the association. She must leave the board meeting and voice the approval for the decisions as a whole, even if she doesn't agree. The third is the duty of obedience. This duty requires board meetings to be faithful to the association's mission and purpose. They're not permitted to act in a way that is inconsistent with the central goals of the association. And the basis for this rule lies in the members' trust that the association will manage funds to fulfill the association's mission and purpose. The board leads with facilitative leadership, engaging and facilitating more than telling, leading, not driving, understanding that the association's success is more important than one person's success or one committee's success. Utilize a strategic agenda more than a personal agenda, and know that you are accountable to the members that voted you into this office, and leave the association in a better place than where you found it. Great leaders influence the beliefs and behavior of others to unleash the creative genius of all parts of an association on a day-to-day basis. Our association is governed by our bylaws, and bylaws are the written rules agreed upon by the Board of Directors to formalize how decisions can be made and business is conducted. The adoption of bylaws indicates a commitment to following a certain parliamentary procedure and the generally accepted rules, precedents, and practices commonly employed in the governance of the association. Bylaws are a negotiated agreement. There is no single format that must be followed. However, bylaws often address the authorized number of board members and terms, voting rights and privileges, approved business activities, appointment of officers, and establishments of committees, quorum, percentages, annual meeting frequency, procedure for amending the bylaws and for dissolving the organization, and other issues that are part of the management of the association as a whole. The key differences between bylaws and standing rules relates to the scope and the effect. The Parliamentary Procedure Guide, Robert's Rules of Orders, explains that bylaws should include all the rules that are of such importance that they cannot be changed in any way without previous notice, while standing rules should contain only such rules as may be adopted without previous notice by a majority vote at any business meeting. At the core, bylaws are designed to be overarching and procedural, while standing rules are specific and administrative. Our standard bylaws for affiliated chapters can be found in Section C of the Operations Manual. These include items such as our name, our mission, policy, membership, fiscal year, etc. After adopting a set of bylaws, an organization can decide to further supplement and clarify the bylaws. Standing rules are the rules that are of a continuing nature. The rules deal only with administrative matters and function under the umbrella of the association's bylaws. Standing rules establish specifics for conduct, such as the time, date, and frequency of chapter meetings and chapter dues by membership category. They can always also dictate how chapter elections are performed, whether by mail or in person, or if the chapter is going to have a president-elect position or not. National has a set of bylaws 1 through 6 that cannot be changed or superseded by a chapter. Standing rules can be adopted at any chapter board meeting without notice and can pass upon a simple majority vote of board members in attendance. Bylaws and standing rules are interrelated. However, their relationship is strictly hierarchical. Provisions in the bylaws always supersede any standing rule that may be adopted. Policies and procedures are the nitty-gritty of how to run the chapter. These are the clear, concise statements by which the chapter conducts its business. These are the rules they abide by. For example, our national policies and procedures detail each of the association member categories, policies for the region fund, chapter chartering guidelines, and on and on. If your chapter standing rules state you will do mail ballots for elections, your policies and procedures would outline the exact process for how to distribute and collect these ballots. If your chapter has a standing rule to reimburse member registrations for attendance to annual conference or regional conferences, your policies and procedures would outline the requirements for reimbursement and the process to submit for the reimbursement. These would include items such as a word count for a report, how many days are allowed for submittal of the report, and the form for which the report is submitted. At the first board meeting of the NAWIC year, the board adopts the small board meeting procedures. Members are required to obtain the floor while making motions or speaking, which they can do while seated. Motions don't need to be seconded, and there's no limit to the number of times a member can speak to a question, and motions to close or limit debate generally should not be entertained. Informal discussion of a subject is permitted while no motion is pending, and sometimes when a proposal is perfectly clear to all present, a vote can be taken without a motion having been introduced. Unless agreed to by general consent, however, all proposed actions of a board must be approved by vote under the same rules as in an assembly, except that a vote can be taken initially by a show of hands, which is often better in the smaller board meetings. The chair doesn't have to rise when putting the questions to a vote, and the chair can speak in discussion without rising or leaving the board meeting. These procedures are much more relaxed than they would be at a larger board meeting. Now, thanks to the increase in video meetings, the National Board has created procedures and small board teleconference and video conference meetings, which can be found in Section F of the Operations Manual. These are the same as the small board meeting procedures. They just leave out the reference of the chair having to refrain from rising. They also include, unless agreed to by general consent, all proposed actions of a board must be approved by roll call vote, and that's in Procedure 5. The majority of the chapter's business should occur at the board meeting. The business conducted by the board should be communicated regularly to the membership. This can be done verbally at general meetings or by creating a summary of actions that's emailed to the membership. This can be a duty of the corresponding secretary. Any supporting documents the board should review to make an informed decision should be sent out prior to the board meeting, sending them enough in advance that the board has time to review the documents. This is an agenda. It's presented prior to the board meeting, outlining the board items being discussed. In the board meeting, you're going to review and modify or approve board meeting and chapter meeting minutes from the prior month. Then you're going to review and approve to file for audit the treasurer's report and review and discuss committee needs or requests. Also in the first board meeting, the board adopts the Sarbanes-Oxley or SOX policies. Pursuant to the requirements of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, each chapter board should review and adopt the SOX policies on an annual basis and attach them to the meeting minutes they are adopted. Each chapter shall adopt the Code of Ethics, Conflict of Interest, with anyone who has a conflict completing this form, joint venture, record retention, and whistleblower policies. The adoption of the SOX policies must be noted in the meeting minutes and a copy of the adopted documents attached to the meeting minutes. There's no reason to sign every document, only the conflict of interest policy. Prior to the beginning of the NAWIC year, the Finance Committee meets to create the new budget. This committee consists of the incoming and outgoing presidents and the incoming and outgoing treasurers. Any other members that might be of use for the budget creation can be invited to participate, such as a past treasurer or the vice president. The budget should be ready to review by the first board meeting of the year. This is not to say it will always be approved during that meeting, but it should be ready to present. The board should feel free to ask questions about the budget and be comfortable with it before approving it. If you don't understand it, don't approve it. At each subsequent meeting, the treasurer presents a report showing actual to budget. The board should be familiar enough with the budget to ask questions to properly manage the chapter's funds. As members of the board, it's good practice to always establish a direct line between the board and the general members. This can be accomplished by having a reliable communication channel and platform to gauge how the members are feeling. Whether it's delivered through a social media platform, a mobile events app, email marketing tools, or regularly sending surveys and polls to your members. This way, you can gain a more direct understanding of the members' needs and preferences. These should be sent after events, with membership renewal reminders, and at the end of the year. You can create segments of members based on interests, like National's doing with the industry councils. And these can be customized to have content to resonate with certain segments of the members. These can be broken up by industry roles or personal interests. And members get bombarded with emails and messages every day, so don't bog down their inboxes with unnecessary content. If you send out a monthly newsletter, make sure the content's beneficial to the members. And don't forget to acknowledge member accomplishments. All members like to see their name in print. Make sure your meetings provide value to the members. If you have members joining virtually, make sure to engage them in conversations and have someone designated to monitor the virtual attendees. The National Emerging Professionals Committee has created a very easy to follow mentoring program. All chapters have members who are knowledgeable in a subject and can impart their wisdom to other members. These can be subjects like public speaking, the NAWIC value, formerly known as NAWIC 101, time management, or how to start your own business. The subjects are endless. The NAWIC value PowerPoint can actually be found on the national website under the heading Education, Programs in a Box. And board members should be considered the ambassadors to new members and guests. Your attendance committee should be providing names of guests and new members to the chapter meetings, and the board members should make sure to greet these ladies and make them feel welcome. And don't leave out those tenured members, though. They should still feel valued, as their contribution and engagement is still vital to your chapter. Maintain positive member engagement by continuously communicating your appreciation for their membership. If all of a sudden they stop attending meetings, reach out and find out if something is wrong. The majority of this presentation has been pulled from the various resources on the NAWIC website, with the NAWIC Operations Manual being the primary reference source. As we continue with our presentations for each board position, we will be referencing material from the chapter president, treasurer, and secretary's handbooks. If you have questions on policies and procedures, or just a general NAWIC question that you can't solve by reading any of the provided documents, you should first begin with reaching out to your regional director. If she doesn't know the answer, she will reach out to the national president, treasurer, parliamentarian, government's chair, or our wonderful ladies in the NAWIC office. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and good luck with your position on the board.